check out the Full Press Hockey Podcast with Jim Biringer, the best in the business. It's going to be great.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Full Press NHL Rumors weekly podcast. We are back. It's Four Nations. It's over. It's done with. Shout out Team Canada. But trade deadline, we're here. I'm in Columbus. David's up in Montreal. About a week to the trade deadline now. And we haven't done one of these in a while. We're going to try to drop another one before the trade deadline special from Full Press Hockey, like we always like to run next Friday as well. Guys, lots to get into, lots to dive into. David, welcome back, man.
Man, it feels good to be back. It's been a hot minute. And,
it is.
No better time than now with the trade deadline. So let's do it.
Let's do it, and let's start in Montreal. The news is not good for Kirby Dach. Underwent knee surgery again. Sources close around the situation feel like it's the same knee that he had surgery on last year. That cost him his entire season. That's not good. And now we talked about it early in an early episode, way back in like November, December, about Canadians really considering moving Kirby Dach in a package. Well, now the injury to Kirby Dach kind of changes things at the trade deadline for them, because now not only do they have to look towards who they have available in Jake Evans, Joel Armia, Dvorak, guys like that, but now they have a look to head to their future, because now their second line center position, which we thought was solidified because Dach was playing really well with line A, they have to look for a second line center now.
Yeah, so I mean, probably a week ago you would have said Montreal is just gonna sell what they have and not necessarily look to add right now, more of a summer move. But you bring up Jake Evans, Joel Armia. These are guys that are getting a lot of calls from a number of teams, including the Devils. And you could only trade so many players, but you need players coming back. And especially with this major blow to Kirby Dach, who, poor kid, can't catch a break. Same knee, 18 months apart. Like, it's brutal. It's a brutal break for him. But now Montreal, I look at it, and obviously you put up a piece today saying Jake Evans could get traded. Yeah, I mean, he's more likely to get traded than not. But like Kent, you said, he wants a second round pick or more, or else he's happy to keep him. Mm-hmm. And now it might be even more. It might cost even more to get Jake Evans, because who are Montreal going to replace Jake Evans, Joel Armia, and Kirby Dach for when everyone in Laval is doing good and they don't really want to ruin what's going on down there, at the same time as keeping a roster competitive to fight for a wildcard spot, only 5 points behind Columbus and Detroit, who play each other on Saturday at the Stadium Series. Yeah,
Stadium Series is going to be a big game, Columbus and Detroit. I think it's the most critical game, and I have a piece for tomorrow morning previewing the game, but the headline's going to be, it's the most critical game in outdoor game history because of what is on the line. Two opponents, both teams battling. And you look at it, Montreal, and you put a great tweet out on Thursday night, I believe it was. Just imagine if the Canadiens didn't have that losing streak going into Four Nations. Where would they be now with this 3-game winning streak coming out of Four Nations, playing really well, looking really good, Montembeault looking really solid. Everybody's kind of starting to find their game. Slavkovsky again. Cole Caulfield will score 40 goals. Like this, and that highlight reel goal in overtime was disgusting. Yeah. But sticking with what their trade plans are, right? You mentioned it. Joel Armia, Jake Evans, the best penalty kill unit in the NHL. I mentioned it to you before, Arpin and everybody else ran with it. But if you could have packaged both guys together, I think you would have got a nice return. Now, in the same piece that I put out there, the Devils do have a second-round pick that they could use for Jake Evans. But I don't know if it's just going to be a second round now. They may have to give up a center going back the other way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something Tom Fitzgerald would want to do, but the Devils are going to go get a center. And we'll get into that later because everybody needs a center. But they have David Savard, Dvorak, Armia. You mentioned Laval. Owen Beck has played well when he's been up with the Canadiens. Is that something that they look to see if what he can do there? Is that the replacement? But we've mentioned this before when his name was out there, and it could cost Montreal a lot to get him. But I know Detroit's still after him. Columbus could be in the mix. Nashville, Calgary, the guy in Buffalo, Dylan Cousins. With Kirby Dach out, he could be your replacement at the 2C position.
Yeah. And like I said, Kent Hughes dealt with a bad hand this week. His team is performing well. And Nick Suzuki said it himself. He said he hasn't given us a memo that we're sellers just yet. And we want to make it a hard job on him. And they're doing it as hard as they could. 6 points out of 6 with Buffalo coming up the next 2 games. So, I mean, if you look at, there's a big hole. And Owen Beck today just finds out, yeah, I'm staying with this team for the rest of the season because there is no one to replace Kirby Dach, and there is no one to potentially replace Jake Evans if a trade goes through. So one thing I want to monitor and wonder at the deadline is if we see Montreal Canadiens make an out-of-the-blue trade to go get a young, proven forward to step into the top 6 for this season and moving forward. So kind of like Buffalo and Colorado deal, a middle side for Byron, but just a trade that caught everyone off guard. No one really saw that coming. And I think Montreal is going to be a team to watch when it comes to that department. So including Jake Evans, Armia potentially going, I see Montreal adding someone that could make a big impact for their top 6, given Kirby Dach being out.
So I got a question for you. You mentioned Middlestat. There's rumors that he may be out there and on the trade market because Colorado's not happy at their 2C position, and most likely Gabriel Landeskog is not playing this season and probably won't, period, which is unfortunate. But is that a guy that you think could fit in that top 6?
I think it varies. There's so much options, and I wouldn't count him out of the list. I've brought his name up before in Montreal trade talks. Any center who is middle-aged in their 20s that has high upside and low cap hit or needs a change of scenery, that's probably the players that Montreal's circling on their board. Whether it's Middlestad, Dylan Cousins, who's going to, it's been known it's going to cost a lot of assets, which Montreal do have, by the way.
Yep.
Along with maybe Trevor Zegras, someone who's just been in and out of rumors, and especially Montreal.
Yeah.
And now JJ Pateka, maybe the other guy in Buffalo could probably be cheaper. Not really a center, but he's played it before. And I mean, we're going to go after it later. Everyone needs a center.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you might have to go get the guy who could play wing and maybe center and be an experiment. Because not everyone's going to walk out of the trade deadline with a center.
No.
Probably the New Jersey Devils. But
yeah, Devils and maybe Leafs. I could see Scott Lawton and Leafs. Like that to me is like that's something that I would be watching for too. But it's interesting because you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, well, what else can Montreal do? Maybe defensively they can add something. Maybe, I don't know. I think now maybe David Savard maybe stays if this team continues and wants to play meaningful hockey. And I said this from the beginning when I wrote about it. This was the year, whether they said it publicly or not. Internally, the Montreal Canadiens management staff wanted this team to be playing meaningful hockey at this time of year.
And they are. And they've been doing so since, coming back from the Christmas break. And what makes it worse now on Kent Hughes more than anything is if Montreal go and grab 4 points in the next 2 games against Buffalo, who are dead last in the East. Because then they are not just sniffing the playoffs, they have 1 foot in the door already.
Yeah.
So, Montreal is definitely going to be a team to watch at the deadline in all aspects, And Kent Hughes, he says this a lot when there's players that are linked to other teams that he doesn't mind keeping them, and he means it. He's done it with Lehkonen. He hardballed until he got what he wanted. At the time, it was a second and a B prospect, which is good value for what he was worth.
And Barron turns into Carrier.
And Byron turns into Carrier, exactly. So Kent Hughes is not going to go above and beyond to facilitate a trade with another team when he could keep Jake Evans, keep Joel Armia, and add someone to reinforce this team because at the end of the day, Montreal want to make the playoffs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Speaking of a trade, you said it earlier. I give you credit via Renaud Lavoie, but I'll give you the credit here because when Rantanen was traded, I didn't think it was going to happen from Colorado. His name, and it ended up happening. So kudos to you on that. His name's out there again with the Carolina Hurricanes. We discussed it before. It's up on the page, fullpresshockey.com. It's up on our YouTube page, our clip. We talk about Mikko Rantanen, what he was going to sign for potentially. There's offers out there. He's presented with offers. Thursday, he had his best game. Now, granted, they did play the Buffalo Sabres, but Mikko Rantanen's best game as a Carolina Hurricane, 2 points. He looked like the old Mikko Rantanen. The question is do Carolina Hurricanes trade Mikko Rantanen if he's not extended?
Well, if you're asking me personally, that's a easy yes. Because you didn't give up a first-round pick for Mikko Rantanen. You gave up a cornerstone piece in Martin Necas, who is thriving in Colorado, by the way. But again, who wouldn't thrive with Nathan McKinnon by his side?
Exactly.
But look, it's another avoidable scenario here. You can acquire Mikko Rantanen and not be ready to pay him the big bucks that he would get on the open market. You know, he's a top 10 player in the league when he's on his game. And Mikko Rantanen knows he could hardball his way to free agency because a team like Chicago, Utah, Anaheim, who want to make a big splash are going to throw $15 million, $14 million to Mikko Rantanen in the offseason. So as of right now, he hasn't gotten more than $13 million. That's what's been reported. So I think if he doesn't want to be here, I'd rather get some assets back than make a playoff push. Because if I'm being honest, I don't see Carolina getting out of the East with Mikko Rantanen or without.
No, that's a fair point. And look, Eric, and then we said this before, Eric Tulsky went all in with this trade. The key is if you were talking about this in the summer, since the summer, and then revisited it, you should have known what the type of player you were getting and how he likes to play. The styles of Mikko Rantanen and Carolina do not mix whatsoever. He's a high-tempo, high-paced player. He's not that defense first. Now, they did switch the lineup and put him with Aho and Svechnikov, and it actually looked really good. So maybe if you stick with that, I could see it. Now, it does take time. You got to adjust. You know, he had 4 nations. I definitely could see him staying past the deadline because they're in a position for the playoffs, second place, all that. And if he was going to get traded, he's going back out west, and he can't go back to the Colorado Avalanche. So that is not allowed, according to, I believe, to the NHL rulebook. So if you look at it, he's going to go back out west. Now, this ties into our Vancouver Canucks stuff because there's a lot of scuttlebutt out there. You have Brock Besser's UFA. We know Elias Pettersson's struggling. We like to do hypothetical trades on this. I'm going to bring one up. Brought this up. I had talked to somebody about this when I was at 4 Nations before it hit Sportsnet. I said, okay, Carolina really, really, really want to make a deal for Elias Pettersson. What if you say Mikko Rantanen for Elias Pettersson?
Yeah, I mean, right? Like, it's not ridiculous. Carolina wants a star player who's going to be here next season. Right. That's what they want. But then again, Rantanen has to be ready to extend in Vancouver for a deal like this to happen, right? So I think, you know, I agree. I think it's a great trade proposal. But when it comes to Mikko Rantanen, I think if he's just going to let it play out, he's going to let it play out with another team regardless. Right. So I think if he doesn't want to be in Carolina, he wants to be a free agent on July 1st. He doesn't want to go to another team and re-sign there and cause all that drama. So I think if he gets traded, it's purely rental. And who I'm looking at in that standpoint as a pure rental, I think the Dallas Stars could be all over Mikko Rantanen. A lot of cap space, LTIR, Miro Heiskanen, who could be out to the playoffs, Tyler Seguin, who is still on LTIR, by the way. And they only made one splash, and it's Mikael Granlund. There's still a lot of money, a lot of assets, a lot of prospects that could be given up for Mikko Rantanen to be traded as a rental. But again, what do you think about that? I like it, and that's a place that he could stay if he wanted to. Yeah. Because they have the talent. They have talent that was similar. No, I'm not saying upper echelon like Nate McKinnon, but they play a style similar to Colorado where they have guys that are fast-paced, move the puck, and you could play with Jason Robertson or Wyatt Johnston as guys like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin start to fade in the back a little bit. Mikael Granlund's there, Cody Ceci. So I actually like that move. That's not bad. And again, like you said, if it was Vancouver, it would have to be guarantees like a sign and trade almost. Be like, look, you're coming with a contract attached and you're staying. Yeah. And the other news out of Vancouver is Brock Besser. And I had Rob Simpson on. And you know, it's the big Vancouver Canucks dilemma with Brock Besser. What do you do with him? Do you keep him, trade him? Do you sign him? And what I mean by keep him is he an own rental? Because Canucks are battling Calgary. Now Utah's there. Now St. Louis is still in the mix.
they need him to score goals because Elias Pettersson isn't doing it. They already got rid of JT Miller.
Not even getting points, Jim.
And not even getting points. 0 points for this team. And, Brock Besser, he did score 40. He's coming off the blood clots and everything. But they need him because no one else is scoring. And the problem is Vancouver needs this Winnipeg Jets exorcism, I like to call it. Not only they may have to get rid of guys in the room that are distractions or whatever, but their general manager and their president of hockey operations needs to go to Quinn Hughes and lay out everything. Like Kevin Cheveldayoff did with Connor Hellebuck and Kyle Connor. We know that there was a lot of drama. We thought those guys be gone. Everybody's already pointing to 2027 when it comes to Quinn Hughes. He's going to be out the door, and he's either going to go to Detroit or New Jersey. And, everybody's already talking about it. And he's not even eligible to sign an extension yet. So
things are
bad. So what do you do with Besser? Like Brock Besser, what are you doing? Because it is a dilemma.
Well, I mean, as a GM or as Brock Besser? Because if I'm Brock Besser, I know I'm not getting my full value in Vancouver. Right? If I'm Brock Besser, I'm hitting that market and I'm gonna get $8 million.
Right.
But if I'm the general manager and I'm trying, Pat Alvin, he wants to make the playoffs.
Right.
And you're not making the playoffs if you're trading your 30 goal scorer. You're only 30 goal scorer on this roster as of right now.
Exactly.
So,
without getting something in return of equal value. But again, how many times have we said it? Miller, Pettersson, or Besser trade, they're not winning.
You're not winning a trade like that ever because he's a rental at this point. That's all he is, Besser. And at the end of the day, Vancouver, I don't see a way that Besser wants to extend in Vancouver because I don't think Vancouver is ready to give him $8 million.
Apparently, there's an offer out there. Rick Dhaliwal said that they offered him 5 times 8.
5 times 8.
Yep.
Okay, you see, if he doesn't accept that, then it just means he wants to get out of here.
Right.
Which I don't blame him because there's a lot of drama and problems in that organization, and it's going to be a long summer for them. I'm being honest here. But like I said, if I'm Vancouver GM, I use him as my own rental, and I try and get an extension. And if not, if he doesn't want to resign here, at this point, I still keep him because he's our only scoring piece to make that playoff run.
No, it makes sense. And there is a lot of drama, but we've heard this before. Saw this with Miller. We saw this with Pettersson. And then all of a sudden extensions just come out of the blue.
I saw that today. Yeah.
And 8 times 8 came out of nowhere. 8 times 11 came out of nowhere for both guys. So I do agree. I don't know if Vancouver really wants to go 8 years with Besser. I could see 5 or 6, but that then this Besser, that could be the holdup. So again, I think he stays. As much as I have him linked to New Jersey because he would be a great rental for them, just not sure because it's a double-edged sword. Do you really want to wave the white flag and move all 3 of those guys?
Yeah, I don't see Vancouver trading one of their rentals when they're trying to make the playoffs. It doesn't make sense,
No.
In a season like this where they already traded Miller, already made moves to acquire players to help them, as in Pettersson, Drew O'Connor, trading Besser is just you're contradicting the plan right now.
Exactly. And plus you have a goalie dilemma coming up too because Kevin Lankinen just re-signed. And Thatcher Demko's continues to be injured and he's got a year left at $5 million. So that kind of tells me that they're going to go with Lankinen moving forward and Thatcher Demko could be available in the summer.
I want an explanation on that one because I did not get that Kevin Lankinen deal unless it means Demko is severely injured or he's leaving the city. Because if he's staying, I have a big problem with that contract extension. But that's for another day.
No, I mean, real quick before we move on to Seth Jones stuff, I agree with you just because if Demko stays in his Demko, he's going to get like $8 million. So then you're paying $12 million to 2 goalies over what?
Lankinen is 31 or 32. I could be wrong, and he's getting paid for the next 4 years.
Right,
I don't
know.
Great season, great player, good for him on cashing in, but I want to know more in this Demko saga.
Right, and I want to know, and we could touch on the Canucks on a whole and how they deliver these contracts because sometimes they just come out of the blue and are a little head scratching. Like I said, if you really knew there was a problem between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, why did you re-up both guys for 8 years?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
They fixed one of those dudes, but
Yeah.
the problems just keep adding up for this team.
Exactly.
Did
Exactly.
this season end yet? That's what I would say if I'm in Vancouver right now.
Exactly. All right, Seth Jones. He wants out of Chicago. He's made it clear he's willing to waive his no trade clause. He wanted out of Columbus. Funny enough, Columbus might try to reacquire him again, which would be fine to go with Zach Werenski. That'd be fun. That'd be fun to see. But Seth Jones looking to move out of Chicago. He's tired of it. He said the team isn't the same as they were. They haven't changed. They're the same as they were at the beginning of the season after that loss to Utah. He's right. He's completely right. He wanted to win. He wanted to go do all this stuff with Chicago. Unfortunately, it's not happening. He wants to go to a contender. Like I said, Columbus is a team emerging. Dallas is a team that has emerged. Florida Panthers are another team linked to him. I think Seth Jones is going to get moved. Not sure it's going to be within the next week, but I could definitely see him being moved in the summer.
Jim, I got a nice proposal here.
All right, let's do it.
And actually, before we get into this proposal, I'm just going to say something about Chicago, my 2 cents. Rebuilding 101, if you look at it on a standpoint, I don't like how it's been handled this rebuild.
Nope.
Because I'm comparing it to teams like Montreal, San Jose, who went to go get some pieces, Anaheim to help out their young stars. I feel really sorry for Connor Bedard, and I'm not trying to nitpick Chicago here, but it just, they were handing out some contracts that were very questionable on July 1st, and it made me wonder, like, why aren't we going and get these young pieces instead? Like a Kirby Dach like trade, New Hook trade, something like that. But anyways, a trade proposal I got for Chicago, it involves Florida, and it involves, Chicago maybe eating up 25 to 50% of Seth Jones' salary for Aaron Ekblad.
I like it.
Ending UFA, who I've heard, and I've seen a lot of tweets, that he could be one of those dark horses to be moved, maybe at the deadline.
So here's the issue with this, is Florida needs a right shot D, and Ekblad's the only right shot D. And if they go get Seth Jones, they're in the same situation they are now. Could I see it in the offseason? Absolutely, because I'm not sure Florida wants to extend Ekblad.
Yeah, I mean, unless Chicago eat up 50%, you're getting Seth Jones at about $5 million for the next.
Right, and it all depends on what happens to Matthew Tkachuk. Now, coach and team say one thing. I'm hearing other. I'm hearing LTIR be back for the playoffs. Shut him down. Not going to play the rest of the regular season. He will play this season. Paul Maurice is right. He's going to play this season. But the playoffs is part of this season, last time I checked. So if that's the case, then Florida can take on most of that contract because they have the LTIR space they can utilize. And then that's your right shot defenseman moving forward. You don't have to extend Ekblad. You have both guys. The key is what goes back, and I think it would be Carter Verhaeghe because his no trade clause does not kick in until July 1st.
You think Carter Verhaeghe for Seth Jones? Basically.
No, I'm just saying it would be more.
Like he'd be one, and not Ekblad. You think they would keep Ekblad?
They would keep Ekblad, solidify the back end with 2 right shot defensemen, but don't extend Ekblad in the summer. Seth Jones is kind of your replacement for Ekblad.
Yeah. And
then you would have to make the money work out moving forward.
Yeah, because, the way I saw it was how Tampa basically replaced Stamkos with Genso, So it just, Florida's getting Seth Jones on a bit cheaper AV because, let's be honest, Ekblad's going to ask for 7 or 8 million in the open market. Well, so, Carter Verhaeghe makes sense as well. Someone who could play with Connor Bedard. But is Florida ready to get rid of him if Matthew Tkachuk is not himself? So there's so much factors to take into account when it comes to Florida. But I said Jones trade, I really see Florida there. And obviously Dallas, I feel like they've been linked to him for so long. Isn't he a hometown boy from?
Yeah, he was going to get traded there the first time he got moved from Columbus to Chicago. So I think Dallas would be a spot for him too.
Yeah, but any Seth Jones trade, salary's got to be retained if you want any sort of asset coming back.
No, 100%. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Chicago, and you may have to broker a third team in on this too to get to eat some salary.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think he can get moved. I think those are the teams to me. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if Columbus tries to see what they can do to get him back there. I mean, look, I'll go back to when he got drafted. Nashville had Seth Jones, Shea Weber, and Ryan Suter all in their system. And Roman Yossi coming. Suter had left already, but Yossi was there. Yossi, Weber, and Ekholm was there. That was Nashville's D when he got drafted. Ryan Ellis was there. Their D was ridiculous. And then they moved him for Ryan Johansson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
people do for a center, right?
Right, exactly. But look, it worked out for both teams. I think Seth Jones is going to get moved. I really do. We said it before, talked about it before. Devils will be active. They will get a center. They're looking for top six scoring as well. They're looking for defense as well. They got to replace Jonas Siegenthaler. You could tell it's such a big loss, but their offense is so inconsistently consistent. It's mind-boggling how this team one night scores 5 goals and the next night only scores 1 and gets goalied for the second time by their former goaltender, Mackenzie Blackwood. Yeah, they finally scored, but you can't. This was the issue I had with Colorado for years before Kadri got there, before Lehkonen, Nichushkin. It was the Nate McKinnon, Mikko, Rantanen, Kale McCarr, even before McCarr got there. Once McCarr got there, it was a 3-man show. But when it was the 2-man show, it's one line. You can beat them. And it's the same problem in New Jersey right now. They just don't have enough depth scoring. Yes, Timo Meier snake bit, and beyond, I have no idea how this guy's not scoring goals right now. But you can't have Jesper Bratt, Jack Hughes, and Nico Hischier be leading your team every night. It just can't happen.
Yeah, and this is just going to be a problem that might not even be solved at the deadline. Like we said, they're going to get a center. But, we're talking about Scott Lawton or Jake Evans, someone like that.
Yanni Gourde
for their bottom 6, which is amazing. Helps their penalty kill, makes them a better shutdown team. But, I'm looking at the trade board and top 6 forwards. Brock Nelson looks like he's staying in New York.
And Kyle Palmieri is not coming back to New Jersey, people. Lou will not trade him back to his former team. It's not happening.
I don't see a path where they get a rental top 6 forward unless Brock Besser really wants to get out of there and Vancouver wants to. But again, like we said, that's probably a dream.
Right. And how do you solve it long term? You got to look with guys with term. Yeah, I know Alex Tuck's name's come up, but he's got a year left. I've heard Jared McCann. People are like, oh, Jared McCann. I'm like, I look at Jared McCann's numbers. I'm like, okay, it's great what he's done in Seattle. He did it for 3 years. Now he's potting 15 goals again, where this is where he was when he was with Pittsburgh. Is he a guy? But here's one. What about Rickard Rakell? If Pittsburgh eats some salary.
He's been impressive this year. And obviously he's got
a couple more years left on his deal, but he's not a bad fit.
No, and he's been playing with Sidney Crosby. Obviously, his numbers maybe a bit inflated, but I mean, Rakell has 50-point pedigree to his name. He's gotten it almost every season in his NHL career.
Right.
And his cap hit is 5.2, about
something like that. Yeah.
Let's say Pittsburgh does eat up 50, maybe even 25%. You're getting a scoring winger for under $3.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to cost you a bit. Don't get me wrong here. But, what about this? A Rakell for Mercer swap.
It's not out of the realm of possibility because I'm going to be honest. I said it before, I'll say it again. The deal I originally heard was 3 times 3.5 for Dawson Mercer. He got 3 times 4. He is yet to live up to the 4. And I'm not trying to speak as a fan, but analytically, I know what he does defensively. He's not getting paid to play defense. Yes, everybody's got to play D, and he was. If the top 6 was quote unquote fine, and the offense would just come, Dawson Mercer needs to be playing in the top 6 and producing, and he's not.
So you go get Jake Evans, who's gonna shut down your 3rd or 4th line. Dawson Mercer then becomes expandable to go get that goal scorer.
Right.
I'm going here.
Right, and Rakell's at $5 million. And he's got a modified no trade that's right now. But Pittsburgh's not going anywhere. I think we'd be okay waiving it to go to New Jersey.
Yeah, for sure. I think at this point of his career, he wants to play some meaningful games for sure. And Jim, I'm gonna go a bit off topic here, but we're still talking about Devils.
Right.
Jack Hughes, Four Nations performance, questionable. A lot of people giving a lot of slack. Do you think he could be that guy to lead the Devils in the playoffs?
It's a very good question. My initial reaction is no, but he has the ability to. But he has to understand that when the game shrinks, he can't do all the dipsy doodle stuff that he can get away with in a regular season. Connor McDavid's on a different level. He can use his speed, this and that. McDavid's built differently. Jack Hughes has to get bigger frame. I saw it in Four Nations. Yes, he was playing the wing, but when the game shrunk and the ice shrunk, he was invisible.
He was getting bullied, Jim.
He got bullied. He got bullied.
The only time I saw him in the final, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but he was on the floor.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wonder, he is such a great player. And Jesper Bratt's the same frame as Jack Hughes. They're the same, they're both similar. So is Nico Hischier that guy to maybe the playoff performer? But then again, is that enough to make a run?
And then that's what you brought Timo Meier in for. Because he was the bigger body, could move guys around. That's why you have Palat. What do? Who do you get? Carolina is not trading Mikko Rantanen to New Jersey. No. Now, look, if he does hit free agency, if I'm Tom Fitzgerald, I'm going after Mikko Rantanen. 100%. Because it gives me a weapon to put with Jack Hughes now. A big guy that they ain't moving. But New Jersey's issue is they're relying on their goaltender too much. And they think they have this great offense, and they don't. And that's been an issue all season. When they went on that winning streak before Christmas, they held teams under 20 shots 9 of 10 games. Since they've come out of Christmas, it seems like they just give up 20 shots every time. You can't win like that.
And they can't. And I think it just, I don't want to pick on the forward core of Devils, but I could only imagine you guys are set to play Carolina in the first round. If the season ended today, you guys are playing the Carolina Hurricanes
on the road. Jack
Hughes has to match up against Jacob Slavin every single night, and I'm not just Slavin's been getting so much credit, but they also have a big defense with Brent Burns, Jalen Chatfield. Are these guys gonna bully Jack Hughes off the bench?
Yeah.
And not what Rob Brandamore is going to instruct the guys.
We saw it. You saw it 2023. In a 5-game series that the Devils lost. When Carolina got a lead, they shrunk the ice. They took away the middle of the ice. They couldn't allow the Devils to get their stretch pass going. And that's how they won the game. And the Devils didn't adjust. And they have their small forwards. And what does he remind you of? How many years in Montreal did we hear Montreal forwards too small?
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
New Jersey are trending that way, man. And, Bratt and Hughes, amazing players. They're your 2 best players. But those are not the 2 best players you want to have in a playoff series.
I'll say this. Jesper Bratt really stepped up his game at the Four Nations. He played well for Sweden with Lucas Raymond and Joel Eriksson Ek. And at times, he actually did play with Rickard Rakell, and they actually played really well. I thought out of all the players that the Devils had, obviously Markstrom wasn't there. Pesci was just up. But out of the 2 guys that played, I thought Jesper Bratt was way more noticeable than Jack Hughes was.
Yeah, it's all about learning how to play with your body and learning what plays are right and what plays are wrong. Jack Hughes can't do any of this fancy stuff that he does in the season in a 7-game series. That's all it's going to take. And look, he could prove me wrong. We've seen small guys dominate in the playoffs before. It's hard.
It is real hard.
It's hard when you don't even have the experience for when he played in one playoff in his career, Jack Hughes.
Yeah, 2023, that's it.
And he just never played a big game in his career.
No.
He's always been that dynamic guy. And in the playoffs, unfortunately, those guys go ghost. So at the deadline, a big piece. Ideally Brock Nelson would have been, shut.
Yeah, and that's not happening. So
but it's not happening. So the Devils have to get creative here.
Exactly. Maybe they got to find a guy with term. And just to wrap it up, we said it before, say it again. Everybody needs a center. because, well, everybody wants a center. Toronto to Calgary, Nashville, Montreal, New Jersey,
Yeah.
LA wants one. Seems like everybody wants a center. It's unreal, the fact that everybody wants a center.
Yeah. It's gonna be either the epidemic of the trade deadline or the extinction, because either we're gonna see a bunch of centers changing address, or we're gonna see none at all because teams already want centers. Why are we giving up centers? It's gonna be such a game of minds, and Jim.
It's gonna be checkers, chess. It's gonna be, okay, do the sellers really feel that they're sellers? Are they really buyers? Like, for instance, one more before we get out of here, and it's not on the rundown, but the Edmonton Oilers need to find a goaltender, and they need to play defense for their team because Stuart Skinner can't get it done. Plain and simple.
Yep, it might be enough to get past LA. But
Maybe.
like every year, but maybe not this year, but whatever. Let's just say they do. You got Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, Winnipeg all coming your way. And
Vegas, potentially.
I'll tell you what, Kyle Connor, Jason Robertson, they're not scared of Stuart Skinner in nets.
No, he's not. And look, is it Karl Vejmelka? Is it Jordan Binnington? Is it John Gibson? Who knows? But the Edmonton Oilers need to find a guy in the net to fix this problem.
Hey, man. It's going to be a fun trade deadline, fun show coming up as well.
Fun show coming up next Friday. We're going to try to drop another Rumors podcast for you guys before the trade deadline, because you know there's going to be a ton of stuff. But we're going to have this out for you here. Stadium Series getting underway Saturday. Columbus Blue Jackets, Detroit Red Wings, two teams also looking to make moves as well. Highly critical game. But this has been the Full Press NHL Rumors podcast. Here, YouTube, get it. Full Press NHL as well on the Twitter machine. Also check it out on our fullpresshockey.com site. Jim Biringer, David Calabretta here. Guys, again, watch, like, subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned. Lots of good things coming before the NHL trade deadline. Take care.
Barry Trotz, Nashville Predators, making sure you're listening to Full Press Hockey Podcast.